Hello, everybody, and indeed, welcome to another edition of In the Green Room with Chicago Tony V. Today, I had a chance to sit down and spend some time with the host of the 20Timinutes podcast, the Great Tim McCarthy. Tim, thanks for being on.
Yeah, no problem, man. You're the great one here, so I do appreciate you having me on. I was looking forward to this all day.
I don't know about that, Timmy. I'm just another bozo on the bus, but thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, no problem.
I've been excited to talk to you for a while, and kind of where I wanted to start. Even though on my show, like you've called in before, you've joined in to live stream here and there before, which is super fun.
Yeah.
And you seem to come up a lot. So, my viewers are generally aware with you, but I thought this would be a good chance for you to, give us an overview of really what your show 20Timinutes is all about.
Yeah, for sure. Big fan of your live show. I always praise yours to everybody. I'm like, dude, the Podfather just keeps on trucking. The big diesel of podcasting never stops. But yeah, my name's Tim McCarthy, host of 20Timinutes. It's a roughly 20-minute podcast that focuses on mental health through insight, personal stories, and my humor. The reason for 20 minutes is because I've been diagnosed with ADHD, so I have a tough time focusing as I do. And even with podcasts, I didn't really listen to them before, and I seldomly listen to them now if they're too long for me. And it's not out of disrespect. It's just sometimes I just try to do a million things at once, as I was running late for this interview as well, trying to do a million things. But yeah, the podcast was great. It took me a year to get it started because I wanted to make sure it wasn't bootleg. I had a logo, I had music, I had an idea, and I didn't have the idea for the longest time. I thought I was just going to be another white, bald guy with a beard talking into a mic that no one listens to. So I think with the mental health aspect of it all was a good jumping point. I didn't invent the wheel with the mental health podcast, but a lot of the ones I see are too serious in a way, which is good for if you're looking for information, legit information. But I'm just some schlub from Massachusetts that talks about my experience. So I think that's what people like, because they tell me that it sounds like they're hanging out with a friend, which is a great compliment. But in my own head, I'm like, how do I keep doing that? And I psych myself out because I don't want to stray off from what my show's about.
Yeah. It's interesting to know that you kind of you took your time ramping up to it. I did not know that, but hearing that makes sense because, kind of right out of the gate, now that you say that, I can think back to your early shows and I can see, it's pretty well put together. And also, in general, the more I get to know you, Tim, I kind of feel like do you have a bit of a perfectionist in you? If you're going to do it, you want to do it right?
Yeah, I think when growing up, I did a lot of half-ass shit, and I didn't like being like that anymore. So yeah, it took me a lot to just be like, all right, I'm ready. And I would always second-guess myself because I'm my own worst enemy, so that played a part into it too. It's like, oh, it's not going to be as good, blah, blah, blah. Then I think I was just annoying my wife too long. She was like, just do it, all right? Just do it and go up there. And then I'm recording in this closet that is ridiculous, so I had to spice it up a little bit. But yeah, I'm very hard on myself if I don't go all in, because if I don't go all in, it just looks like I don't care, and I want to make sure that people that listen know that I'm taking my time and I put a lot of work into it. It feels like a full-time job half the time, which is weird. It's
You're telling me, Timmy.
Yeah.
You're telling me.
Between the social media and then getting an episode together, my episodes are only 20 minutes. I can't even fathom the people that have 4 guests, runs an hour plus. I'm like, man. I'm like, dude, props to those people. But yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. I think those people are called Sirius XM Radio.
Yeah.
it's like you're big time.
Yeah,
they have staffs and whatnot. One of the things that I love about your show, Timmy, getting back to this thing that you do where you kind of, you beat yourself up. This is part of your personality. What I love is you do it right there on the show, and it always cracks me up. You'll just be going along, and usually toward the end, on certain shows, you just be like, this sucked. It just cracks me up.
Yeah, I feel that in my bones. I'm just like, all right, I'm boring myself in a way. And I'm just like, all right, let's finish this up. There's been like 3 episodes where I've been like seriously angry getting through it, and I'm like barely smiling. I'm like gritting my teeth. I'm like, oh, I don't even want to watch it. I don't even want to edit it. Nothing. And then one of the guys that listens to my show, a fan I met through like a Facebook group, his name's Sean. He was like, dude, you could read a phone book and I would still listen. I'm like, dude, it's like if I'm reading a phone book, I'll be sleeping.
You know, it's funny though, that's a great segue into one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because like now I'm a fan of your show.
Same.
And so what I've seen over time, and like I said, you're very upfront about it. You're just like I'm having a bad day sometimes. Sometimes you're like totally on. Sometimes you're having a bad day. And like I say, this is part of what's so fun as a fan of the show is like we get to see how's Timmy doing, and there's this thing about you where no matter how I'm feeling, I'm going to do it. And so just to share with you, Tim, so I do as you know, I do my show 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. And so I've had shows where it's like, oh my God, I'm not feeling it. Yeah. Or something will happen on the show where it totally throws me off. I think one of the most infamous ones, I got into this weird Twitter feud with this trombonist.
Oh yeah, of all things. Oh yeah, I remember that.
It happened right before I went live, and it totally messed me up. So I wanted to ask you, Tim, like, are there things you do or ways you get through those shows where I'm struggling, but I'm going to do it anyway?
I think it goes back to wanting to do so well, being a perfectionist. If I miss a week, that's when it's going to drop off. Like regardless if I have viewership going down, which is another hurdle to get over, which I'm doing a lot better with. But if I miss a week or I don't do it, I feel like people are going to be like, oh, what happened? And then kind of lose that sight. So I've made a promise to myself, and I don't really break promises. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So if I skip the day, I will stop doing it altogether. It's one of those things. If I eat healthy and then like a week I eat like crap, I'll just keep eating like crap. So I'm trying not to do that. And I think the motivation behind it is like proving myself wrong. Like there's past Tim, present Tim, and future Tim. Past Tim always screws over present and future Tim, and then future Tim is like, "What are you guys doing to me right now?" So it's like a battle I have within myself. That sounds totally weird that I'm explaining it like that, but I try to prove them both wrong that like I can do it, which sounds psychotic. Yeah. Oh man!
I'll just share with you. Especially knowing that we were gonna do this together today. I've always been a listener of yours, but I kind of boned up a little extra over the past couple of weeks. And something I'll share with you, Timmy, is like there have been several times as I've listened to your own podcast and other interviews that you've done. It's like, oh man, Tim and I are a lot alike.
Yeah,
a lot alike. When I think about you, sometimes as a fellow podcaster, Timmy, it's fun to. I imagine sometimes like, what's Tim doing? Like right before this recording today, it's like I had this vision. It's like Tim's working on his empire.
Yeah, that's what you said.
He's hitting it hard. And the funny thing is I'm the same way. Well, hell, I already recorded a show this morning. You know, I've been prepping for your show. So I think we're a lot alike. Now, what's interesting is, obviously you're now you're seen probably you're becoming to be seen as like a thought leader. How are you dealing with that? I'm sure you have fans reaching out kind of like asking for advice.
Yes. So I feel like I'm the mental health liaison now, which I don't mind people reaching out. I'm always on the internet as it is. I work overnight, so I don't really have a lot of people to chat with as it is. So I chat with a lot of people from the UK and like Australia, which is like funny enough. But I actually talked to my therapist about that, and she was like, you have to be careful. And I was like, oh, I agree, because at the end of my episodes, I do a PSA that I'm not a professional. Like take what I say as not literally, because it only works for me. Like we could have the same diagnosis, we could do the same medication, but that all affects us in different ways. So I make sure to stress that when I talk to somebody that tells me their story. I have so much empathy in people, so I do like hearing from people, and anyone that wants to reach out can reach out. But I got to keep myself in check because I don't want to be a liability for someone's mistake or anything like that. So you got to be very, not stern is the word, but you just got to be clear, like crystal clear, like, hey, I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy sitting in a closet talking in a microphone. Like it's just who I am. But I think with me being so open, they feel comfortable opening up to me. And then I don't like share it with anybody. Like I don't even tell my wife half the time when someone messages me. I just say, oh, people say nice things or open up. And she doesn't really care to like, no, she's not like a gossip queen.
Yeah. That's a good way to be. Speaking of crystal clear, Tim, like, did you have specific goals when you started up your podcast? And are goals for your show something that you've evolved over time now that you're into it a bit?
I don't know what my goal was to start it. I think with the whole COVID thing and not having much to do, like I work, I sleep, I sometimes go to the gym, and I just didn't have a hobby. I'm getting sick of playing video games. Like I'm 35 now, and I just feel like I'm wasting my time. And then I own a house, and I still have like so much to work on. So I'm trying to just like find a hobby that's like kind of positive in a way than sitting on my ass and eating pizza and playing video games when I just yell at the TV. And I think my goal now, I was trying to think of like, I did a short-term goal and a long-term goal. And I forget what my short-term goal was. I think it was to reach like a certain number of like listeners or like try to get on like a top 10 mental health lists for podcasts. And I think my long-term goal was like trying to get on like some sort of like iTunes list. Because you can't really, like if you get your hopes high and you come crashing down, you can get up, but it's so hard. And I've seen like friends like make promises like, oh, I'm going to do this by this date, blah, blah, blah. And that's like a big thing with my mental health that I have a problem with being diagnosed with bipolar 2. You get pretty manic and you think you're going to like do stuff and you get your hopes up. And when you don't do it, you come crashing down. And that's just like a shitty feeling. So like I'm just doing small steps, taking it like week by week. I have like people emailing me now to want to be on the podcast. I have a bunch of like consultations coming up with people all over the map, which is insane. And I think what I'm trying to do with the interviews is trying to go out of my comfort zone and try to take on awkward, touchy subjects that most people wouldn't do to stand out from the other mental health podcasts. Like I had a postpartum episode where I don't have any business talking about a woman's body, especially where I'm not having kids and I don't plan on having kids, but I did it in a way where like I'm like very innocent in my questions. And Rachel Rosen, who helped me out, one of my questions, and my wife was like, that was a very smart question I wouldn't think of. And I was like, oh, is there a prepartum? And it sounds so silly to ask because you know how I am. Like I'm very like sarcastic in a way. Like I always tell people I'm very I'm like passive unaggressive. Like the tone of my voice sounds like a joke, but I'm being like really serious. So that was a good one. I just talked to Doug Middleton about mental health with the African American community. Again, I'm not African American, but I want to help spread awareness. So I have like all walks of life coming up. I have somebody that's transgender. I have like a doctor coming on. Like I have like a wide variety of people, and I just thrive in awkwardness, even though my anxiety goes crazy. Like I'm anxious right now. Like I'm picking my fingernails for no reason. And like, I know when this is done, I'm just going to like laugh the whole time. And I love those moments where like I'm in awkward situations, in a safe space like this. If I'm out in public, I don't do well. But like something like this, I'm just like laughing the whole time, especially when I do something about like postpartum, and I'm like, this is gonna end terrible. But it came out really well, and people commended me for it, which was a good feeling. Yeah.
I made this mistake of watching your interview with Doug this morning, and it's like the reason it was a mistake is I saw you did so well. You're so polished. And it's like, oh man, I'm going to be interviewing Timmy in, less than half a day. And now I gotta, you set a bar for me, Tim.
Good,
so that was my mistake, but that was a good interview. And it was kind of difficult because a sad story. It's like the dude lost his best friend. It's really sad. Yeah,
it was tough. Yeah, his best friend committed suicide. He was dealing with like depression for so long. And suicide's a big thing to me. To talk about. So it was good to like ask him questions. And he's an NFL player, so you know how NFL players have like a post-game conference. They have like the same kind of answer for everything. And he had those with those questions because he's talked about it with other podcasts, which is fine. But my goal is to ask him questions he doesn't normally hear. Like I asked him, I was like, what type of person was AJ? And he like lit up and talked about his best friend. He doesn't get that question. And then I asked him about certain things from Charlotte, North Carolina, where I have connections, and he like lit up and answered the question. So he was happy getting those questions. And I always heard that the questions you want to ask in an interview is think about the listener and what they want to hear in a question. Like, oh, I thought, like, oh, he should ask this. He should ask this. So in my head, I try to take myself out of the equation and like ask those types of questions.
Yeah, I noticed that when you asked that, and I recognized right away, like, whoa, that's and I noticed that he responded. So that was very well done. Tim, what's a question that you haven't been asked yet so far in these series of interviews you've been doing? What's a question that hasn't come up that should come up?
For me, or like for me?
For you.
Oh man, I don't know. People say I think everyone's different. The people I've talked to like this podcast from these two girls, the Bex and B, like UK girls, and we were talking about the difference between America and UK mental health. And then I was on the Sober Highway, and we were talking about like addiction. Yeah, I don't know. People don't really ask me personal questions. The only thing I don't really talk about is my job. But other than that, like I'm an open book. So I get like random questions. I'm pretty good on like my feet, like being like quick. Like sometimes I'll stutter over my words, but my gears are turning. Like when I talked to Doug Middleton, I was like, hey, you need a nickname. I was like, how about Doug the Shrug? And he was like, okay. Like I just love I love that type of stuff, like wordplay and coming off like the top of my head with like answers and stuff. But I don't know, like
that that wordplay thing is something I was just thinking about it this morning. It finally kind of dawned on me, and I think you said to me in a DM, whatever, a month or two into you and I knowing each other, you talked about like I have this sort of gift for jargon or something, and I guess it happens naturally, Tony's Pepperonis and Hello Everybody Indeed and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I
in
love
my
that.
show. And I was thinking about that just this morning. Like it's just kind of weird how that has just kind of happened naturally. One thing I want to hear from you, Tim, because I've always wondered, like, do you ever worry you're going to run out of ideas like for each episode, like, oh, what am I going to do next?
Yeah, every week. The second I stop recording, I go, what am I going to talk about next? Because like I'll have stories to tell, but I got to make sure it intertwines with like mental health and stuff. But then I'll have like one or two episodes that kind of like directs that because I want to make people laugh. But I was talking to my wife about this, which is funny enough, and she made a good point where I was like, should I change my name, like the 20Timinutes? She's like, no, that's you. Like that's not the show. Like that's you. She's like, you're the personality now. Like, you go if you go over 20 minutes or you go under 20 minutes, like that's like kind of the gag now. So she made a great point. So I got to own it. I don't even like the number 20. Like that's like I'm not even a huge fan of it. Like my favorite number is 31, but like that doesn't work. Like 31 Tim minutes. Like, but yeah, that is funny.
That's interesting. That I've wondered. It's interesting to hear that you get kind of stressed about topics because a lot of times when I'm as a podcaster, I look at other shows just to see like what can I learn, what would what would I do if I were in that situation, and like one of the things that I have going that I think is unique because I'm such a nut job. There's no preconceived. I don't have hardly any guardrails, and I've wondered about your show. Like, now it's great because it's specific. It's about mental health, and I also love that it's you make a point of saying it's about mental health and humor. Because like you're a really funny guy.
I appreciate that. I don't think so, but I appreciate that.
Well, but you're self-deprecating, and you're a perfectionist, so that's where that's coming from.
Yep.
But no, trust me, there have been times where you've just made me laugh uncontrollably, so it's definitely there. It's made me wonder, Tim, like, have you ever thought, now I know you've done some different things in the past, do you have any thoughts or ideas about maybe spinning up another show, like that's whatever, let's say it's just comedy or who knows?
I jokingly enough like thought of another idea for a show, which sounds ridiculous, but I was like, I would do it with somebody. It's called I already have like the name of it and everything. It's called it's called We Bought a Petting Zoo podcast. No, We Bought a Zoo podcast, like the movie We Bought a Zoo. And what I would do with somebody else is we would take one zoo animal and then talk about that animal. Then we would describe what actor or actress would be that animal and then go through that. And I don't know why that came in my head, but I feel like that would be interesting because no one's really doing a podcast on zoo animals and actors and actresses. So I'm always trying to think outside the box. Like that would be so ridiculous.
That would be ridiculous.
I love a lot of the ridiculous podcasts that are out there. There's what is it? The weird Beard Owl podcast where
yes.
That's like super original. Then there's the I'm so bad with names, and I apologize if they're listening. Is the horse podcast where they do a movie that includes a horse, but it's not like they don't talk about the horse. They just do movies that have like a horse in the background or like it's in there. Like I think that's like super funny because you have to stand out.
Yeah.
And I love seeing those. And then I'll go and like try to look at like other mental health podcasts and try to link up with them and set something up with them. But yeah, I do like comedy a lot. I like don't even watch anything besides like comedy movies. And like I did stand up for a little bit and I kind of fell out of love with that. It was just one of those things I was like, I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it. And then I don't want to be like, I never did it. And I always wonder like what would have happened. And why I stopped was because I got defeated in a way that it wasn't my material. It was everybody else at open mics. It was very cliquey. And it was like laughs were currency and people wouldn't give it out. Even if if I would be like the only one laughing. And I'm like, this is funny. And no one's laughing at this guy on stage. So I was very scared about that with the podcast community when I came on. And I was like, here we go. I'm like, I'm going to battle with everybody else and just everyone being a jerk. But it's been insane how everyone's so supportive.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's super weird. And what I thought about was like, yeah, it's like a TV show. It's like the WWE isn't battling with CNN. Like they're not taking away from each other. And it's like then we have like crossover episodes like me and you. You know what I'm saying? It's like the Tuesday night guys with the weekly like show guy. You know what I mean? So it is cool that everyone supports one another.
I totally agree. And I think that I've been pleasantly surprised that it's been so supportive.
Me and you linked up early.
Oh yeah, you're like the first. You're the first other podcaster that I mean, I was such a neophyte, Tim. You don't even know.
Yeah.
It's like you and I linked up, and I don't even think I was working my own Twitter account yet.
No,
I think I had one of my assistants doing Twitter for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know how we started chatting. You and Haley from Podcast 27 were like one of the first people I really chatted with, and then I think Game for a Movie and Glazer. I always pronounce her name wrong. Like those like the first couple people I met, and I was like, all right, people are cool. But yeah, it's funny. And it's funny.
Yeah, and people would never know this. I want to put this on the record.
Hell yeah.
The Great Tim McCarthy is honestly one of the most helpful dudes behind the scenes. Like I've seen you, Tim, like you will, I mean, you're Johnny on the spot when anyone needs help, has a question or whatever. I think you're to be commended for that.
I appreciate it. I think I get it from the other podcasters too. I know like Javon from Decent Takes was just helping me before this with my light show I have now. This is like the debut of my light show, by the way. No one has seen this yet, so you're like the first to get it.
I love it.
Yeah, you're the first to get it.
I've got a scoop, Timmy. I love it.
Big scoop in the 20 minutes.
I love it.
That's so funny.
Those guys. Javon is great. Of course, Harry from the award-winning Gamers Watch, very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy. Me and him chat a lot. We just pretty much scream at each other about everything that we hate.
He's another guy that I think of in the same vein. Like I think of you. I think of Harry from Gamers Watch. And full disclosure, I'm gonna wrap myself in there. It's like we're working so freaking hard on this thing. What is it about podcasting, Tim? How did we get involved? I was asking recently, I don't know if you saw, it's like, is there some sort of rehab for this? Like, I'm addicted to being a podcaster. Like, what happened?
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, and you just want to keep grinding and grinding. Like, I wasn't jaded, but I kept making jokes about it, like I was when that award show happened, and I got like snubbed because I didn't have enough votes, and I'm like, I want that, like I want the next one, like I want to keep grinding for that. And then I was upset for you that you didn't win, but I was like pumped for like Harry when he won. So like I like have
Yes.
that, like I'm like, oh, I want that so bad, but I don't want to show it like to people, and I was just making jokes about it, and I like deep down I'm like, oh, this motherfucker. Like, get this. So it is like a healthy competition in like the nicest way possible. I'm not trying to like beat somebody or leapfrog somebody. Like I want to like run with Harry and make sure he's doing well, like you doing well. Like I'd rather support good people. And I'm not saying you guys have bad shows, but I'd rather support good people with subpar shows than support somebody with a great show that's an asshole. That's just the way I see it.
I wholeheartedly agree. Life's too short. And I think sometimes too, like I can't think of anyone necessarily that specifically comes to mind, and I probably wouldn't mention them anyway. But what I'll say is I can think of people who started off really rough in the podcasting game, and it's like, I'm not going to bet on that show. And it's like, by golly, they worked on it, they chipped away, and it's like it's evolved, it's gotten a lot better. I do think it's a tremendously helpful group. And I also, you mentioned like you were sitting around because of this this pandemic deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many of us, I think in a lot of ways, that's really why what the pandemic made me realize, Tim, is I realized like I don't have a social life. I thought I had a social life. But it turns out like my social life would be like the waitresses at the restaurants I would go to all the time. And I mean, yes, I have some dear friends, a few dear friends. It's like I'd always, let's go have a beer, let's go have dinner or whatever. But it's like when we had to isolate because of this flu deal that's going around, it really showed me like, oh my gosh, you're alone.
Oh yeah.
And so my podcasting story is like, I just thought, holy shit, I'm going to die by myself. I'm going to be totally alone. And I think there's so many people like that. Look at, I know they have it much more difficult in Europe, or at least I believe that's the case. They're way more quarantined than we are. My gosh, the podcast coming out of England, it's they're everywhere.
Yeah, they are everywhere. And we're a rare breed just being our own hosts. I didn't know that. I feel like me, you, Fantasy Friendship, Glazer. It's tough to name them. They're just single hosts, and it's a tough grind by yourself because you do seem crazy, and you're talking to yourself, then you realize you're like, where is everybody? Like my day is over, and I haven't done anything. Like I'm the same way. I got friends, but then I realize I'm like my friends now are like people on the internet. And back when, like, we both were alive when, like, AOL 1.0 came out. And, like, that was, like, you talk to someone on the internet, like, that was weird. Like, you were just like, don't talk to anybody. You don't know who they are. It's still to this day, but now it's more, like, friendly and very open. But, yeah, I'm the same way. I feel like we're going to be pushing a casket, like, the way we're sitting right now. Like, our bodies are going to be just rigor mortis this way when we die. We're going to be evolution.
Oh God, yeah, no doubt. But it's it's amazing. So Tim, like most of my day now is interacting with friends and fans. That's most of it. And what's fascinating is it leapfrogged outside of the like my show's on Reddit. So it's like that's kind of the home base. Like it leapfrogged past Reddit. In a lot of ways, past Twitter, like I get phone calls, I get texts, I call my fans. I don't know if that's a normal thing or not, but it's like we have each other's numbers. It has been a glorious accident. Like I was not a technology guy. I'm still not a technology guy, but it's like this is proof to me that there's something here, and we can still have relationships. Thank God.
you're one of the rarest people with your show because you do it on Reddit. I've never heard anyone do that, and that's like such a cool thing. And you aren't technically savvy because I remember you would always promote your show, and I sent you a message. I was like, hey man, you should include your link so people can just click it right away. Because again, I always put myself in the listener's shoes all the time. I'm like, it would be easier if you just had it, and like. You're probably in the same boat with this. Is like it's so hard to give constructive criticism to somebody. Like that's not constructive criticism. That's just like another tool to help you out. Like I'm just like, oh, by the way, you should do this. But do you find that hard when it comes to like somebody that's like asked for help and you're like, I don't know if I should say something. Like I don't want to come off as rude because like I don't mind it. If people said something to me, I was like, oh, there was actually a guy that said something to me. He, just random guy from a Facebook group. I was in like a men's mental health thing on Facebook and it just got terrible. So I left. But this guy wrote notes about my show. Like he showed me a piece of paper about my show and he was like, oh, you should do this, this and that. And I was just like, all right, man, like that wouldn't be my show. Like he just like stripped my show apart and like took me out. I'm like that's who I am. I'm being myself. And it was just so funny. And like, I wasn't mad about it, but I was like, that's awesome that someone like took the time to listen, write down notes and be like, hey, your show kind of sucks. You should do this. And I was losing it. But yeah, I'll help people if they want like honesty and stuff. But I would never like be like, hey, you should do this. But because again, I'm not a professional. People come to me and they ask me questions. I'm like, I just plug a mic into my dying laptop. I don't know what I'm doing. Right.
No, I get it. And it's funny. It's interesting that you asked that. That's an interesting question. And I hadn't thought about it before. But the truth is, I actually do have trouble giving other podcasters feedback. And I specifically, like one of the things I figured out really pretty early on is a lot of people don't know how audio works, you know? Mm-hmm. And I can think of, I've got friends who have really struggled from the audio standpoint, and I just want to, like, wring their neck, just, hey, someone, and of course, when you have podcasters that are friends, that means they might not even be on the same continent. It's like if I could if I could take my dopey computer kid who has set me up pretty well, mm-hmm. Shoot, I'll pour him in the car. Let's go drive over to, if someone's having audio problems, let's fix it, fix it. When they're long distance though, it's, so I keep my mouth shut. I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not.
Yeah. I like Javon helped me out today. Like I like that stuff. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not technically savvy, and I was asking people if I was like bored one night. I was like, anyone like want me to review their podcast, even if it's one episode? And I listened to them and I gave them feedback. And like I was like, I'll still give. I think the iTunes ratings are ridiculous. Like I don't know who's rating a podcast 2, 3, or 4 stars. It's like that's ridiculous. Like who's like, yeah, it was good, but the guy had a terrible accent. 3 stars. It's like what? So I reviewed one podcast and I told them I was like, oh, good idea, blah blah blah. I was like, the only thing is like I had trouble hearing you. It sounded like they just had a mic in the middle and they were both on opposite sides of the room. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you noticed, but this and that. And they're like, no. I was like, we kind of realized that, but yeah, we're definitely trying to work on that. And that was it. I don't know if they took it to like hard or got mad, but I was just like, well, if I'm going to review your podcast and give you 5 stars, I'm going to say something like. Yeah, like, and I preference it. I'm like, hey, it's like my mental health thing. I'm like, I'm not a professional, but I'm in the standpoint of a listener right now.
Right. Getting back to this idea, Tim, that there are podcasts everywhere. Isn't it amazing to really think about the sea of? And again, I don't necessarily think about it like competition. But I mean, it would be fun. I think you and I are the same. If we're doing something, let's be good at it. Let's let's see if we can take it from point A to point whatever. Boy, there's a lot of shows out there.
Dude, there's so many shows. Yep, there's a bunch. There's so many. Oh, yeah. It's tough to go through all of them, and I feel bad because I talk to a lot of the podcasts, and I'm always afraid of them being like, hey, did you listen to this episode? I'm like, no, I haven't yet. I'm sorry. Like, There was one, I don't want to say the podcast name because I just feel rude, but there was one that sent me one. It's like, oh, have you listened yet? And I was like, oh, no. I was like, because it was like a thing that my wife would like. And then a couple of weeks later, I haven't even told my wife yet because I totally forgot. My memory is just terrible. And I was just like, hey, man, I'm sorry. I was like, I'll get to it when I can. And I was just like, I felt rude. I always feel rude when I talk to people on this thing. I'm like, I'm trying. But
yeah. Well, there's a disconnect, right? I mean, let's face it. What we're doing right now, this isn't natural.
No.
It works pretty well, but it's like it's not natural for a guy in Boston to talk to a guy in Paducah, Kentucky. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And the Zoom calls are always awkward with when you just pop up. If you don't know the person, when I do interviews or I meet somebody I don't know yet, it's very awkward. And then you sometimes wave to people like it's the Titanic. Before you shut off,
yeah.
It's who am I waving?
Everybody does that.
Yeah, you just say bye.
I don't get it. Right.
So I try to do icebreakers with people right away. So with Doug Middleton, right before we started recording, I don't know what came over me. I was like, all right, dude, rock, paper, scissors. And he just jumped right into it and we played. And it worked so well that I'm like, I'm going to keep doing this with people. So anyone that I interview on the show, I'm going to do that. I did it with my next guest for next week and I plan on doing it with the next people. So they know, I tell people, I'm like, if they don't listen to my show, they don't listen to my show, but I'm going to explain who I am. And they're going to get my personality pretty quick. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I don't expect everyone to be like, oh, yeah, I want to be on your show. But I won't take offense to it because I don't want them on the show either if they're not going to bring it.
Yeah, I saw you posted that video of rock, paper, scissors, and I think that's a very clever idea. I'll let you in on a little secret. You know what I was thinking about doing with our interview here today is the exact opposite. Just because I thought it would be fun to bust your balls. I wanted to see, I was thinking if you come on and I just hit record and I just go. Yeah. No small talk whatsoever.
I would have loved it.
I don't quite know you well enough yet, Timmy. Oh, God, I was close, but I just thought,
you should have. You should have just brought the heat. You should have, because I wasn't even ready yet. I was putting my extension cord together because my laptop was about to die. And I was talking to you, but the sound was coming through my headphones, so I barely heard you. But I heard key words to be haha, yeah. I knew what you were talking about. We're just playing Mad Libs.
Yeah. Or I even thought about when you come on, I could act like I've already been recording for a minute or two, like you weren't even in on the front end of it. Oh God,
that would have been great.
One of these days.
I know. I had an idea, and the guy that created my app, me and him were talking about it because he knows you too. And I was like, if I ever come on or something like that, I just want to paint my face like a juggalo and not tell him. So if you opened up the camera and my face was just painted and I didn't mention it, I just kept talking there was nothing wrong with my face. I was like, that would be super funny, but I don't have the time to paint my face. I'd probably use real paint and kill myself by mistake or something. But I thought that was that would be, and I think I told Haley that too, and she was losing it as well.
That is a terrific idea.
Yeah.
And I think you and I are in this. We're a lot alike. I would totally enjoy being thrown for a loop like that and see how I could handle it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons. One of the things I enjoy about my live stream is you never. I mean, almost every day I'll get comments that are like, "Hey, did you know you're fat?" Shit like that. And it's it's just fun to see. Can I navigate through the whole thing?
Yeah, people are very negative online. It's very funny, but then I think it's who what are they trying to accomplish? They trying to have another guy be like, oh yeah, he is let's get the pitchforks. Who gives a shit? But I'm also very petty, so if that was me, I'd be talking shit back.
You know what's happened, Tim? It's really fascinating. I talked about it the other day on my show. So when I first turned on Reddit, I did a couple trial runs before I even launched as a podcast, just one or two. Well, hell, I didn't even know my little team launched as a podcast. I didn't know what a podcast was, but I mean, right out of the gate, I got the first couple comments I remember. Dudes call me grandpa.
Ooh.
Right out of the gate. And you know what? That has stuck with me to this day. It's oh, okay, motherfucker. All right, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how this goes. But what's fascinating, Tim, is that sort of stuff went on for like 2-3 days, and that's it. And by that time, I had enough regulars who just started, they're like little attack dogs. Like if someone really gets mean, the other pepperonis will just pile on whoever's being a dick. And like it basically doesn't happen anymore. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
And if you don't acknowledge it, it's like more frustrating for them that they just give up because they're wasting their time. But so like I kind of feed into it, so that's why they keep coming. But I don't get a lot of hate because I'm very self-aware with myself and my podcast. I feel like a lot of people can't really make fun of me in a way for a mental health podcast. Like if it was any other thing that I did, it would be. It's like making fun of like someone with making someone fun of someone with like a mental health issue. It's like, haha, you're crazy. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. I know.
And plus, Tim, you're such a sweetheart. I mean, who would mess with you? That we didn't even talk about that Twitter feud that was all my fault.
Oh,
That's
no,
maybe
I know, that
conversation
was,
for
that
another
was
day.
wicked. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that another day. I told my mom I'd stop talking about it. My mom commented on that YouTube, and she was like, if I knew his Twitter handle, I would have went at him too. It was wicked. Yeah, my mom's like the same way as me.
Yeah, I just want to say sorry. I mean, that thing was my fault. Why that guy keyed in on you and not me? I think it's because I just wasn't around. I was asleep. You know?
Yeah, he
just
got
wanted
me.
to bitch at someone.
Yeah, and that's what
Anyway.
he did. But yeah, I dunked on him, so it's fine.
Yeah. That's a conversation for your next visit, Timmy.
Yeah.
Listen,
exactly.
I know you got a heart out. I want to really thank you for spending some time with me. I know you're so busy building the 20Timinutes empire. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I got
One
my
of
own
these
hat,
days,
got
I'm
my
not
own-
even. That's it. One of these days, I'm not even going to be able to get through your own people, Timmy, to even get in contact with you to have you on the show.
No.
I got to get you on while you're still available.
No, yeah, you'll be on my guest list if anything big pops up. I remember loyal people. I always thought about that, like when you have like those like big like fantasies of like becoming rich or this and that. Like I always say, it's like if I became like famous, like not through podcasting, but like in general, like I would think about this before. Like my best friend Duffy, I was like, you'd be my chauffeur because he's straight edge and he doesn't drink. Like I would pay him to drive me around. Like I wouldn't just like have like an entourage. Like I know certain people, and I feel like a lot of famous people like bring in like shitty people, and that was always my thing. And I was like, my big buddy Jay, I'm like, you'd be my bodyguard, like all this stuff. Because like one time at a punk show, like we were mosh pitting, some guy like came up behind me and like hit me real hard, and he just came out of nowhere and just fucking decked him. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like I'm huge into loyalty. Like people that are super loyal to me, I'm super loyal back, and that's like a huge thing. So yeah, you can be right on the coattails, pal.
Beauty. Okay, good enough for me. Timmy, thanks again, man. Good to talk with you.
Yeah, love you so much, man.